on live TV. It's wrong with Time Warner, so
Okay.
we are on tape.
All right, so November 23rd, 2015, our agenda is first of all to approve the minutes of the non-public work session of November 9th. And I think
I was
you
not
weren't
here.
here, Bill wasn't here, so can we have a motion on those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? I guess we got 3 out of 5 if we all vote in the affirmative, so aye.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved, and then
Wednesday.
Bill will abstain. And secondly, the minutes of the November 9th regular meeting. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
By Mike, seconded by John. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
In the way of announcements, we will have a budget work session on Monday, December 7th from 4 to 6. And then our next couple of regular meetings are at 6 on December 14th and 28th, with a work session immediately before at 5 o'clock. So work review sessions at 5, meetings at 6 on those dates. And then we have an additional work session, probably for the budget, scheduled for 5 o'clock on Monday, November 30th, so next week at 5 o'clock. All of the above meetings will be held here unless otherwise posted. Weather observations for October are available in the town hall. Citizens wishing to be listed on the agenda should notify the town hall before noon on the Friday before a scheduled meeting. The offices will be closed Thursday and Friday of this week in honor of the Thanksgiving holiday. And our holiday parade will take place Saturday, December 5th at 5 o'clock. Do we have the appointment of Holly Harris to do? No, I guess not. What?
Steve Tamburino was going to be here with the people.
Well, maybe, I'm sure, he'll catch up with us, I'm sure.
Get approved at a working group meeting?
Yes, the,
I think that's why it's not. I think that's why they're not here.
Okay.
no. Okay, she was still supposed to come before the board.
Okay. No. Okay.
Under correspondence, we have a letter from the supervisors of the checklist. It's the next item on our agenda, which is dated November 7th, addressed to the chair with a copy to the town administrator. Is there someone here from supervisors that was going to address this or not? I guess I will summarize this. Basically, the supervisors of the checklist are telling us that there's a lot of work involved in their jobs, that there was a discussion about increasing their compensation several years ago that never occurred. And I think, and then they have a compensation proposal, which they feel is fair. They want us to review it. And the schedule is that they would be paid $300 for town meeting, $500 for a primary, $700 for presidential elections. Is this, pardon me for not knowing, but is the expectation that each of the supervisors gets that amount, or that's an amount to be divided up? Each gets that amount. And there are 3, right?
Yes.
All right. So I didn't know, did you expect somebody was going to be here to address that with us? Not necessarily. So it's a matter for us to discuss. Do you, either of you happen to know what the level of pay is now? I'm sorry, that's not really a fair question because we didn't prepare for that, right?
Yeah, it should be in the front of your budget book, the
Whoa.
very front of your budget
Oh,
book.
that's in the other room.
Okay.
Well, maybe what we should do is, maybe we should have a chance to compare this with that and then take it up at our next meeting. Does that sound like a reasonable thing? So can we put this on the agenda for next meeting, and then
Yeah.
that'll give us a chance to give it a little thought and see how much the raise is proposed to be. And then the next item is Daniel Lee, Professor of Economics for Plymouth State University.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Nice to see you.
So again, my name is Daniel Lee. I teach economics at the university. I serve on Governor's Economic Advisory Council, and I'm also a tourism economist for a Department of Resources and Economic Development. But the job that I like the most is advisor to Economics Club at Plymouth Elementary School. And I'm here to promote Economics Club at elementary school. And this is something that I started last winter. It's sort of giving back to the community type of project. So the idea is to teach young children fundamental concepts of economics with real world problems. So last winter what we did is I solicited local businesses to participate in the program. That happened to be M&M Scoop on the main street and off the hangar. So we asked local businesses, what kind of economic information do you think might be useful to your business? So these two businesses asked us some demographic or economic information around the region. So after the pilot program last winter, we got together the school officials and the parents and students, and they all loved the program. So we decided to grow the program going forward. So year after from that point, I'm here again trying to recruit local businesses to participate in this program. So I'm here to encourage or promote this program and encourage participation from the local community. So I brought one of the students who participated in the program last winter, who happened to have the same last name as mine. So Diane Lee is here. So if after the presentation, we would really appreciate if the town of Plymouth, consider participating in this program this winter, or let other businesses know about this program and encourage them to participate. We would really appreciate it. So Diane Lee is going to show us what she did last winter. It's a shortened version of presentation that we did for Off and Hanger, local business. So Diane?
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Diane.
So you want to stand over there? Papi's going to help you with the slide.
So my name is Diane Lee. I'm a 7th grader at Plymouth Elementary School, and I'm going to show you a presentation that me and my group members made for Off the Hanger. The outlines. Nature of business, economic information requested, identifying available data, economic indicators, which are population per store and sales per store, and finally the summary. Businesses Off the Hanger. This is when Mrs. Vachon came up and told us about her business. Since she's not here, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Off the Hanger. So Off the Hanger is a store in downtown Plymouth which sells used clothes to young females. Identifying available data. Off the Hanger falls into the category of women's clothing stores at a 5-digit level NAICS code. We used U.S. Census Bureau because it had the finest levels of geography and industry. And we identified the relevant data by looking at information, the latest data, but mostly geography and industry. This is a screenshot of what we looked at, and up top you can see that there's the title Women's Clothing Stores. And there's 3 sources that we could have used that all relate to that topic. But looking at geography, we can instantly eliminate 3 because those 3 only give us data at US level when we're looking for...
Diane, it's kind of hard to read. I
Okay.
made hard copies. Maybe this is going to help you read a little better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have done this at the beginning, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Continuing, we would want data from sub-state or town level. And then looking at the frequency, we can eliminate 3 more by looking at the last 3 that say every 5 years. That means the data could be really old, and we want the latest data possible. So that leaves us 3, and the 2 we chose was county business patterns and non-employer statistics. So again, county business patterns and non-employer statistics. The main difference between these 2 sources was that county business patterns only showed the stores with employees, when non-employer statistics showed the businesses run by mothers and fathers which didn't have any employees. So population per store. Definition. The population to store ratio is how many customers or potential customers per one store. So let's say Plymouth had 10,000 potential customers when Holderness had only 1,000. You'd want to put a store in Plymouth because they have more potential customers. So the data sources we used for female population is American Community Survey, and for the number of stores is county business patterns.
You may ask questions if you have any. Just stop us and ask questions.
And this is a graph that we made for population to store ratio. You can see that Plymouth has the highest ratio, a little bit above 1,400 potential customers. So that is better of all those towns. And Tilton has the worst, which is lower than 200 potential customers. But thinking about that, doesn't Tilton have the Tanger outlets? So why don't they have more potential customers? Well, that's because there are more stores, which means more competition. And thinking deeper into that, this graph doesn't show the customers that travel into Tilton. It only shows the ones that live in Tilton and go to those stores. Because travelers would most likely go to Tilton because of the outlet and the fast food restaurants more than Plymouth.
So this indicator here, population per store, does not capture non-resident potential clients. So that's the drawback of this indicator, which will be captured in sales data. So that's the second indicator that we looked at.
So the sales per store definition. Sales to store is how many or how much money a store makes. And let's think about an example. If Plymouth, again, makes $100,000 every year on average, and Thornton makes $10,000 a year on average, you'd want to put a store in Plymouth because the average amount of money you make is higher. And the data source we used for the sales is non-employer statistics.
then again, non-employer statistics, the difference between the previous data set is that this one does not cover stores with employees. So we're mainly talking about small stores, mom and pop type of stores with no employees.
This is a graph for the sales to store ratio. On the right, it says, or on the left, it says changes over time for the Grafton County. Starting in 2008, it rises up until 2011, then makes a drastic drop in 2012. This is showing the amount of money on average that people make in the Grafton County. Then looking on the right is the comparison across the areas. And right there you can see that New Hampshire's average is almost $500,000.
50,000.
Oh, $50,000.
That's hard to read. $50,000.
The highest average is Hillsborough with $70,000 per year on average. And Rockingham is also a good place because it's just above the average, almost $50,000 per year. But Grafton, out of the data we collected, is the lowest and the worst, a little bit above $30,000. And the other counties, we couldn't collect data because there is no data available.
Because of confidentiality issues, data were suppressed for the other counties.
And then the summary. The major findings we found was that in Plymouth, there are more potential customers, so that'd be a good place to put a store because of the lot of young female customers. But Hillsborough is a better place because you make more money on average. But the thing is with those two graphs is that one was towns and the other one was counties. But if we go on with the counties and keep thinking that all those big stores didn't change the graph, then Hillsborough would be the best place to put a store if she wanted to put another one. And another finding was that the economics indicators aren't always perfect. They can't show everything. In the first graph, we saw that Plymouth had the most potential clients, but it didn't show the amount of travelers coming in and out of the towns. And in the second graph, it showed that Hillsborough had made more money on average per year, but it didn't show the big companies with employees. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Good.
Thank you for this opportunity, and let our kids have opportunity by participating in the program. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you again. Thank
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Bill?
Do you do something similar in the high school, or once she goes to the high school, you'll do something similar in the high school?
Well, I made a commitment to Plymouth Elementary School that I'm going to continue this program even after my kids graduate.
Okay.
Yeah. I love working with the kids at the elementary school because they really want to learn. It's I'm not teaching all sixth graders or 6 to 7 middle schoolers. It's a selected group of kids, more or less about 10 students. Yes.
Do you have a plan for this year?
Yes. So this year, I want to make the quality of the program more vigorous. So last winter when I ran the pilot program the first time around, we met twice a week before school time, 7:30 in the morning. So twice a week, 45 minutes each session. We did that. But then some of the meetings were canceled because of snow. So I wanted to improve the quality of the program, and the purpose of that is I don't want to go around asking for charity. I want them to come because of the quality of the program. So starting this winter, I propose that we meet 4 times a week. So Mondays through Thursdays, 7:30 in the morning, 45 minutes each meeting. The quality of the program will be good. You've seen Diane present it. And also, I'm going to make sure that they're going to deliver useful product. So I want to promote this program to the community. I want everybody know, every business know in town. I think it's win-win situation because our kids get to learn economics. They're really thrilled. They're so thrilled, they don't mind coming to school 7:30 in the morning. And I think it's also a win situation for local businesses because this is an opportunity for me to utilize my expertise because I'm going to make sure that the quality of the information here is good. So business also get something out of this program by participating in it. So, but it doesn't have to be business. It could be town of Plymouth. Just let me know what type of information you might need. Then I'm going to take a look at the data, and if there's such data available, that's the first thing. And then if there's data available, then I'm going to see if that's something that students can, analyze and make a presentation. So the only thing that I ask is if you're participating, you come to the meeting twice. That's all I ask. The first week of January, you come to our meeting and explain who you are, what type of business you are in, and what information do you need. And then the second meeting will be at the end of February. You just come to our presentation and sit back and enjoy the presentation. That's all I ask.
Paul?
Yeah, Dan, on a municipality side, would you be able to do a research on what's most successful in Plymouth versus what the town is lacking and what type of business could come into town that would be successful because we're lacking in a particular area versus what we don't need any more of, which wouldn't succeed, and have that kind of data?
Right. That's something. That's a project that's more rigorous, for students to take on. But I did a study in that capacity for Scott Stevens a couple of years ago. So what I did in that study was I selected the towns that are similar to Plymouth, and then found what type of industries or businesses prosper in those towns that are similar to Plymouth. One of the major findings in that study was the building capacity. So if you talk to the people in economic development, they would often talk about industrial park maybe, because there are 2 towns that are similar to Plymouth in terms of demographics and things like that, were Littleton and Meredith. So one of the things that they have, but we don't, is industrial park or building capacity. So I asked Mike Long once, hey, here's the need for it. Maybe you could make some investment in this. And he said, it's a risky investment in making such a big investment as one banker in a small town like this. So he said, we really need public investment to go along with private investment. So that's the talk amongst economic development folks for this area. But I don't think that's type of project for this group here.
Well, I figure she's going to graduate in 2 years from PSU.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Yes.
I was wondering how you came to like 10 students, and then how do you go about that process of
So selecting students?
Yeah.
So I just make recommendation to principal and teachers. The first one will be math ability or math test scores. The second thing is I told them that my preference is that I want to make a difference in young children's life. The children from rich family, they're gonna do well. They're taken care of. But I would think that I could make biggest impact on kids from needy family. So I said the first thing will be academic ability. The second thing, if they're almost equal in academic ability, then I would take kids from needy family. So that's what I told them.
Anybody else? Well, thank you so much, Dan.
Well, thank you for the
Appreciate it.
opportunity.
Diane, thank you.
Thank you, David. Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
All right. And the next item on our agenda is Ashley Inserillo here? Did I?
Inserillo is correct.
Inserillo? Okay.
So
Good evening, Ashley.
I'm not presenting, do I say?
You can sit.
You can sit or stand, whatever you'd prefer. Yeah, you can. These chairs are not easy to move around, so it's sort of like an anchor.
So I'm here to talk to you tonight about a potential collaboration on a grant from the Department of Environmental Services. They, the actual deadline was November 1st, but they got we were still kind of we missed the deadline is the bottom line. But they liked our idea and they offered us an extension if we could kind of tie up some loose ends and get some details hammered down. The grant is a local source water grant. The Plymouth Village Sewer and Water was awarded that grant 2 years ago, and they have done some evaluations of the grants over by, of the wells over by the Common Man there, and found some sodium and chloride concerns there. So the potential idea that we had was, I work for the Center for Environment at Plymouth State, and we've had water quality sensors in 3 different rivers in Plymouth recording nonstop for 4 years at this point. We have already talked with the water and sewer department, and we're trying to figure out whether it's logistically possible to put some connectivity sensors into the wells themselves at different depths to kind of see where the salt intrusion might be entering the wells. But tonight I'm speaking more on behalf of Andrew Giacomo, who is the founder of Sensible Spreader Technologies, which is a company that, I have a few handouts here, that tracks and monitors road salt applications. And they've done a couple of pilot studies in Laconia last winter, and their municipality was outfitted with their product, which is a tablet that's mounted on the dash and a sensor that's attached to the back of the truck that monitors the rotation, and it calculates the volume of how much salt is discharged throughout. So if your whole fleet has it, everybody can see where everybody else is. And in the Laconia study, they found that there was 30% overlap. So they found that trucks were dumping excess salt on certain areas where they overtracked each other. So we're hoping to potentially compare the data from the road salt application data to the sensor data and the well data to see if we can come up with a more targeted solution for the sodium and chloride intrusion in the drinking water wells here in town. As I said, it's,
Do you want to look at this?
if you have any technical questions about the GPS and salt tracking units themselves, I'm happy to do my best to answer those questions. but I'm not the expert in that by any means, so I can defer to Andrew.
Let me ask you about what we're measuring here. You put this sensor on the truck, and then what gets measured exactly?
You have the volume of salt that's being deposited on the roads. So it has, it measures the times that the truck rotates, as well as it has a sensor on the gate as well. So it can calculate it can calculate, since it has the measurement of the opening, which is adjustable, they can calculate the exact volume of the salt being put down.
So it's the quantity of salt and the distance the vehicle travels?
Yes, and time.
All right.
And, yeah, so.
So
and
basically, you could kind of figure out how much salt is dropped in a foot or 2 feet or a mile.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if it's not just salt? I mean, if it's like a mix of salt and sand, or just sand?
There's different, you can change it depending on what you're putting in there.
The
So,
dash
yeah,
thing,
on this unit, you tell it what you're putting in there.
Is that the tablet?
This is the tablet. I wasn't sure. It needs to be plugged in for it to be visible, but
There's a plug over here.
The trucks will have to have extension cords.
it's okay. I mean, it's really typical. It looks like a GPS unit, if you've seen that before.
So, and I guess it also must record the location of the.
Yes, everything is in real
route.
time. So you can see yourself, the entire other fleet, and see where they are, how long they've been out.
And this all gets downloaded somewhere, or it's accessible
Yes,
somehow?
the data gets put into a cloud, and Andrew's in the company helps process, interpret, create summary graphs of everything that the town is.
So
up
you
to.
said you were here essentially on behalf of Andrew, I think you said some.
Yes.
Is the grant to purchase these devices?
Yes, the grant is a collaborative effort in that we would compare data sets and write summary reports, but the majority of the funding is capped at $20,000, which would go mostly to the equipment to purchase for the town. So we were hoping to purchase the equipment for the town so they wouldn't have to pay out of pocket and do a little demo winter with us.
And then I'm trying to think here, I mean, we know how much salt we buy in a year and how much we have left at the end of the year, so we know how much salt we put down. And are you talking about more like ascertaining exactly where it goes? And I guess in Laconia, you talked about there being some amount of overlap,
Right.
which would show up on this. But I'm thinking Laconia is pretty big. They got a lot of roads, and we're not nearly that big. I think we've only got 2 or 3 people driving the trucks, so they should pretty much know where they've gone.
There's no comparison to Laconia.
Yeah.
Relatively small to them.
So, yes.
Yeah,
Paul.
actually, I told you I would bring a highway superintendent
Yeah,
here
that's
tonight.
great. Perfect.
This is Joe.
Right.
Because, as I talked to you on the phone, we're trying to figure out where in town, because we don't salt outside of the village.
Right. Okay,
And
that,
I don't know where you're monitoring and where you're getting these hits on the sodium and exactly what you're trying to accomplish and where within the town. 'Cause
okay. So, a couple answers to that question there. We're also meeting with the state next week to potentially get them on board, because I know Highway 25 and Route 3
Route 3,
are a majority of,
the state.
right.
And fairgrounds, and that
Yes.
whole area is all state.
Yeah, so we are trying to get them on board as well. But on the flip side, we have sensors up on New Hebron Road, and then we have sensors down here in the storm drain that off of Highland Street that have been in for, like I said, 4 years.
And that's
So-
what I meant. We don't salt
Mhm.
out in that area.
I guess part of my question was the boundaries between the university care and salting versus the town, like in this.
Well, we maintain the town roads that cross through the university property. So High Street is ours, I believe, and
They all are.
they all are, yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a couple, like I know Jim was saying Toby Road. I think he was saying is theirs.
You do Toby Road.
Yeah, we do Toby
Oh, we do
Road.
Toby Road, so we do all of them. And they're all town roads.
Okay, okay, thank you.
You know, I've heard a little bit about water and sewer, and I recall them, I think, believing that most of the salt that ends up in the wells comes from the highway.
Mhm.
And that the wells are pretty close to the highway, and of
Yeah.
course, that gets pretty heavily salted. And I was always under the impression that that's really where the salt in the well water came from.
Mhm.
Or that's what everybody believed. And and those wells are over there, and we're salting over here. I wonder, it's pretty far away, and if it was running into the river to go that way, not that way.
Right.
So I wonder,
If we were upstream,
that
but
would
we're
be,
salting downstream.
Or if this was to benefit Ashland.
Right.
Or
No, exactly, yeah.
what do your sensors find? And you said you had one in a storm drain at the bottom of Highland Street?
Yep, it's just at the end of the Rand parking lot there.
I'm interested in the one on New Haven.
Yeah. It's on Claybrook there.
Yep,
Um,
but has it been active already, or is it new?
the sensors itself,
Yep.
they were installed in 2012.
So they couldn't have gotten any hits on sodium.
Um,
Are they getting any contaminants?
I mean, the water up there is pretty dilute. It's not impaired in any way. But you can definitely see, well, you can see an influence during an event or during a salting event. But it's not high or chronic by any means.
Because everything would come from the farmland in
Right.
that area versus our roads.
Right.
What about Highland Street? Is there
The hi-
salt in that storm drain?
We did a chemistry analysis of that 2 summers in a row, and most of the composition there is sodium and chloride.
When you say most of the composition, what do you mean by that?
I mean, there was like a little bit of calcium and other.
So of contaminants or
Or just-
non-water stuff,
Right,
it's
just
salt. Is that what you're
ions,
saying?
yes. Mhm.
There again,
I'm a scientist, so I say stuff like non-water stuff.
so when you're talking about Highland Street, also, that crosses over Main Street. And, the state salts through there, so they
You would
kind of
expect-
overlap one
Yeah.
another. So
Exactly.
there again, it'd be hard for us, when you're overlapping one another, the state and the town, to come up with a,
So you're saying there would be times when there would be overlap of salting
Yeah.
because you go over the same place they went over. It's different people.
Have you considered putting sensors at the outlets of storm drains for commercial parking lots?
We have. I've just started to try and network a little bit into that. I've been talking with the organizer of DES's Green Snow Pro program that they're voluntarily enter the program and they get a certification, but they basically track how much salt they put down and give the data to the state. So
Who does that?
this is a program through DES.
So these are private parking lot
Right.
maintenance people?
Mhm.
I see, okay. Yeah.
And it's unclear to me right now if there's anybody in Plymouth right now or willing to share the information. So
And the benefit of being a Green Snow Pro approved or certified applicator is like you don't have as much risk if.
right, exactly. Your liability is significantly decreased. Yeah.
Joe?
So, I'm curious, the college plays into this because they're centralized around all our streets. And are they being monitored with the same setup? Or,
We've
because
talked to them as,
their applications go out the same as ours do.
so these monitors, these sensors can also be put on any size machines, so they can be on the little sidewalk plowers and whatnot too. So we've also kind of still in discussion with them as well. But
Because that, to me, they're right in the central, so we play a part of that equation if everything runs downhill.
absolutely.
Do you salt with your sidewalk plow?
Yep. It depends on the weather. If it's,
But, no, I just meant,
like last year, it was extremely cold for so long. We didn't put out as much salt last year because of the cold weather. It has to be warm in order for salt to work.
on average, do you know how much salt we use in a year?
I didn't bring that figure.
Yeah, I'm
but-
sorry, that's not, yeah, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
put you on the spot, I just thought maybe you knew off the top of your head.
So how much training does like a driver need to do in order to punch in like, half sand, half salt?
It is super user friendly. It takes them only and super really easy to install. One of the engineers from Sensible Spreaders could come up and do it in an hour and teach everybody how to do it. It's no extra effort on the driver's part. They don't have to do anything extra while they're out there doing their job.
So is that a wireless connection between the sensor and that rig?
Yes. Between the rotation sensor and it is wireless, yes.
What do you think about this, Joe?
I'm opposed to it, only because, I can see with the state, where Route 3, and the interstate, and fairgrounds, or any place where there's a red flag. But for us, there's really no red flag. And my guys work several hours, and, that's the last thing. I'm not opposed to this program, but I just don't think there's enough to support it for this department at this time.
So I guess one of the things, if I were in your shoes, I'd be thinking about is how much time does it take to do it, and how much maintenance is involved? I mean, how much of a distraction would this be from my responsibilities? And I guess I'd be looking at it, I mean, I know it's winter and it's probably late, sometimes you're working long hours.
The distraction's the biggest thing for me. I mean, we're not allowed to use our cell phones and stuff, and so now you're adding another device that you have to monitor, and it's just, I don't see it at this time.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts about it, one way or the other? John? Neil? Did you?
Maybe we could take it under advisement and give it some consideration.
Mike, did you have any?
What were you looking for like tonight? Just an answer, yes, we'll go for it.
Just-
Because what did DES offer regarding, the grant is available for the use for this, the purchase and.
Right. What's your window?
So if we were in agreement that we would like to move forward with this, then I would need to have it right up to them by the first week of December.
Did we decide we're having a meeting next week?
Monday.
Yes. Budget meeting.
So is this can't be all based on my department, it's gotta be based on, the overall picture, right?
Yeah.
So,
So if we get the state on board, that's a huge help. Like you said, the major impacts are from the state highways. But just in terms of your fleet and your guys' work, this would show you where your inefficiencies are and where you might be losing money by overlap and whatnot. That'd be the benefit for the town, I guess.
Well, a question regarding the sensors that are in the wells and the work that was done on 93, and with the, placement of the impervious, redirect of the salt into the baker, or the PAMI, excuse me. Now, those sensors will, because we have all the historic data, those will pick that, theoretically a change up if we have less salt that's going to be.
Yes, they would be.
Intruding into the-
They would be able to pick that up. Mhm.
Let's hope for that.
I know.
Why don't we, I think what we should do is, I would like to read this, and I think everybody'd like to think about it a little bit. Why don't we take it up and decide a week from tonight?
Okay.
Now, that is not a regular meeting, it's really a budget meeting, but it's open to the public
Yep.
nonetheless, and
It's
so, and we will probably be in the room.
We're actually gonna.
We'll do it here,
in
okay. So, we will be here, so we'll decide next week, how's that?
Okay, that sounds great.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for
very
taking the
interesting.
time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ash.
Thank you.
Well, the next item on our agenda is actually Joe to talk about Boulder Point plowing. I'm not gonna say sanding, salting, I'm just gonna say Boulder Point plowing. Purchase order for RM Piper up to $14,000, which I guess we have here. And then the other one is Joe also, winter sand hauling service. So that's like cleaning up Main Street.
Right, so
Okay.
there's a slight correction on that.
Oh, uh-huh.
On the purchase order itself, it's up to 28,000, because they both come out of the same line item,
Okay,
and so one might use more than the other.
right.
So-
But you're looking for a total of 28 for those
Correct.
two things, yep. And I see we have Piper's plowing contract here.
Yep.
He's got the truck and the hourly rate and the dates and so on. And then I imagine there's a similar... Oh, that's one contract for both. That's what you were telling me,
Right.
isn't it? Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Were we doing Boulder Point ourselves
we-
last year?
Nope,
We haven't done it in a
nope,
while.
Piper had it last year also. It went
I
out.
think he's had it since the beginning, hasn't he? We've had some. I
No,
mean,
we've had somebody else in there.
But we've paid to have it
We've
done.
been doing it since we, right,
Yeah,
we've been having it done by somebody.
right. Okay, yeah, that's really what I meant. So does, any discussion about these or a motion?
I move that we approve these proposals, purchase orders for up to $28,000.
All right, do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Do we have any further discussion?
No.
Nope, if not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that's a unanimous vote. And so... I guess I'm still a little confused. There's two here.
Right, they both come out of the same winter operations line item.
Oh, I see you wrote set up as purchase blanket up to 28.
Meaning I don't have to come see you every time if the
Sand blanket.
thing's over.
I understand. So you, okay, gotcha. Whoops, I just, uh-oh. I get the sign here sticker. I don't know what it is. Oh, that's for Paul. All right.
It's crap.
So you're all set with me?
Oh, yes, I think we are, Joe. Thank you very much
Okay.
for coming in.
Have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
Me too, Joe.
Did I give them both of those? Yeah. The next item on our agenda is committee reports. Anybody been to any meetings they want to?
Water and
Discuss.
sewer. The projects that they did this construction season are completed, and the water and sewer was very satisfied with the work that was done by Kingsbury Construction. And
Can you summarize what was done out on Tenny, for example?
well, the first project they did was on Fairgrounds Road to fix failure in that hollow by the fairgrounds
Yeah.
and reconstruct I think the water and sewer line where it was collapsing and stabilize it. And the road is much better now than it was before. And then they put in a new sewer line adjacent to Hatch Plaza, which runs down along by the river towards the high school, or I'm not sure, the elementary school.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Committee reports? No?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. I got a ton of So I attended the campus community council meeting the other night, and it was pointed out that another residence building was going to be built. And I know we discussed that earlier in our work session, but it's going to pick up another 350 students, and construction is targeted for occupancy by fall 2017. Additionally, I went to the planning board meeting, and there were 4 items that were voted to be approved. One was a reapproval of a 6-unit multifamily residence at 28 Railroad Square, and that was approved in 2013. It went stale and had to be reapproved, which we did. We also approved the plans for a pizza establishment with a liquor license. It's going to be built across from the Circle House, near the Rumney line. It's right next to the driveway for the new Montessori school. I don't know if you're familiar with that area.
Yeah.
We also had approval of the change of use from commercial services to a restaurant at 55 South Main Street, and that's the Melcher Prescott building. And they're going to be putting in a restaurant there. Also, we expanded the use for a garage structure at a multifamily residence that's between Winter and Russell Streets, and the intended use is for a property management business to store stuff there. And the next meeting is December 3rd, I think, and we're going to get back to master plan discussion with our facilitator.
Is that it?
That's it.
I went to the Conservation Commission meeting,
Yeah.
and we discussed some of the activities on the trails that are being maintained, and some of the budget, and we discussed stormwater issues in the town, and the Conservation Commission is also discussed the land use change tax funding, and we have Chairman Lisa Donor and a number of members of the commission here tonight.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get, sorry they were at the bottom of the agenda here. I don't think it was anything personal, but just the way it, it's new, other business, so. And if we're done with the committee reports, then Paul is the next item on the agenda to discuss payment of user fees at the recycling center.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to explain a little bit of what happens at the recycling center in regards to how you pay for items that come in, and why we're doing what we started a couple of years ago after having several break-ins where over $2,000 had been taken. So we've had a couple of serious break-ins, and we've had several minor break-ins. But that, combined with the drug problem that we have in town and making almost anything in this town a target lately, we've been paying more attention of not making the departments a target. We had slacked off without any of our knowledge on a request coming from the board that we no longer have any money out at the recycling center kept there in any form. I realize that sometimes it doesn't make sense when you feel you have a $2 tire and we tell you you either have to come to the town hall and drop the $2 off here, or we will send you an invoice, as small as it is. And it doesn't always make sense, and we've all been approached, especially myself lately, about people that are getting a little upset and having to either mail in a check or you even use a check on a $2 item. And the reason for that, again, is we should have a sign, and we will have a sign on there that says we don't want to have cash on that property. It will get broken into. Other things happen when it gets broken into. We have a lot of equipment down there, and we don't need the equipment to be damaged. And frustration sets in, and we've been seeing it up there. When somebody breaks in and there isn't something to rob, then we have damage done. So I'm here to advertise that we don't have cash up at the recycling center. It obviously had gotten away from us. I think people felt because we caught the 2 individuals that did the larger break-ins, that it was okay to start taking in money at a certain level, and it's still not. And we are looking into other ways of handling this. But to explain the $2 away, we can't say you're not going to pay for that $2 tire, because then we will inherit every tire from the community around here. We also can't say, okay, to make it worth your while, we're going to go up $3 on a tire, and we'll take care of all the envelopes and the extra mailing and stuff like that, because if we do that, then the other towns will inherit all the tires from Plymouth. So as a Pemmy Baker Solid Waste Group, which is the surrounding towns, we try to be consistent on what each town charges for a refrigerator, a tire, a mattress, so no town is inundated by the surrounding towns. It's $2, yes, and it's crazy to cut a check, and I'm just advertising the fact that you do pay $2 for a tire. If you can hold on to that tire until you have four, no, usually when it's 4 tires, we don't get this complaint, because it's $8 and people don't mind cutting a $5 check.
Well, I think the point is we feel we just have to have a rule. And the rule is no cash. And so it doesn't matter if it's, you can't just sort of say, okay.
We couldn't say $100 for the day and that's all your second center's going to,
And I recall that we instituted this rule when we had the problems back a couple of years ago, and then I think the enforcement of that just got kind of lax out there, probably because people were complaining about it and wanted to leave their small charges. But so the choices are check or bring the cash to the town hall.
Bring cash
or we
to
will
town
send you a
hall.
bill.
Or we'll send you a bill. And we'll absorb that extra 49 cents. And it sounds crazy in many ways, but we're living in some sad times right now because of what's going on. Not just because of the economy now, but because of the drug problem that we have in town.
Is it possible to just collect the money through Visa using a Square or?
That'd be more expensive than us doing the 48 cents where we're invoicing it out.
Okay.
We had looked into that, and just having a resident card. We've looked into everything. We've looked into the self-addressed stamped envelope that we could hand the person at that time. But many people, in all honesty, don't mind just dropping it off at the town hall. And I can also tell you, with all the complaints that we've been fielding lately, I bet I know we don't deal with these once a week. We probably only deal with one of these once a month. So we're only talking a couple of dozen of these times where it's just a $2 item. And people just get upset at that particular time. It's always that $2 tire. So if you could put that $2 tire with a $10 refrigerator, it'd be more convenient. It's ludicrous. It's sad that we have to do this. It's sad that it's come down to this. I would never think that that's a place to get broken into, but it is. Every metal now is considered a precious metal up at that recycling center. Everybody thinks there's gold up there. If there was gold up there, I would have found it 15 years ago. But our aluminum cans are guarded. Our batteries have just gotten stolen. We will catch you. It'll probably be a felon. And we've proven that over the last 2 years. It's not worth it. But because of the new problem, when it was just an economy, somebody would think twice about breaking in to the recycling center for $20, $40, and one time $2,000. But when we're talking drugs, somebody will break in for the $20. They'll break in for that piece of copper. So there are a lot of things that I'm not going to get into that we are doing to secure that department, Joe's department, and some others. but we have to do it. We don't like doing it. You know, we feel just as bad for having you have to come down to the town hall for $2.
All right, and then there's the next, and I think, as I said, I'm afraid, last item on our agenda is Lisa. Did you want to discuss, I assume it's this letter that you
Yeah, there was
delivered
actually
to the town?
2 items of business. One is very quick, and if you don't have time, I understand. But we have a student member who would like to join the board, Reagan Young, and she is here today. Do you have a copy of her
Yes, I
letter?
do.
I think
I'll take it off.
we have
Is
it.
this
You
one?
you all have a
Did you-
copy.
Yeah, we
did you
have
get a
it.
copy?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay. all
Everybody
right.
has a copy.
Okay. So she's here to answer any questions, if you have any questions about that.
But I didn't read this.
Do you have a full board?
Yes, but we have a vacancy for a student member. We had a student member a couple years ago. He was a senior and graduated and is no longer a resident of Plymouth. Reagan is a
I-
first-year student.
I have never thought about this before, but is there, there's a statute on this, I imagine, that it creates the Conservation Commission and sets the number of members. Is there some provision for,
Yes, there's a provision for student membership. It's been established since before I was on the board. I don't know when it started, but we haven't always had a student member.
so you mean, when you say it was established by our Conservation
Yes,
Commission?
by the select board.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't, we were discussing this at our work session. We were wondering, I know that the Conservation Commission entity is a statutory creature. You know, there's enabling legislation that says you know, that we can have these, and it sets out the number of members, and I think it says something about there being a representative from the select board as a non-voting member. But I guess we just didn't know if there was anything there about authorizing this, and I don't know, and I'm sorry, Reagan?
Yes.
Reagan is a resident of Plymouth, I guess?
Yes.
And is she a voter? Did you register to vote yet? Or-
Is your domicile in Plymouth?
I am living here at the university.
Okay. I was just wondering about that too, you know, if,
She would be a non-voting member of the board. She's there mostly to represent the students and to enable interactions with the student component of the university so that they understand where they may be able to step in and help. And
okay.
to give us
Yep.
an avenue to help when we need it.
yeah,
It has proved very useful in the past. The map that is now at the kiosks on our hiking trails was created by the prior student member
nice.
using
Yes,
GIS.
and so when was that last student member? It was like a couple of years ago, something like that?
Yeah, Gigi, do you remember?
Yes, the select board voted on approving a student member on our board, a non-voting student member, about 10, 12 years ago, when Lee Webster was the chair of the department. And I've been on the Conservation Commission since 1986, so I go pretty much back in some of these things. Anyway, we had one young male student who was coming regularly to our meetings and contributed, and also contributed to the work, the trail work especially. And so we discussed among our members whether we would be able to have a student member on our board continuously. And so that was brought in front of the selectmen, the select board, and it was approved. And so after this young man moved away, I think he was with us for a couple of years, we had another student who showed up a few times and then sort of lost interest. And then that happened a few more times that we had a student, but not continuously because the students lost interest. And so now it looks like we have a winner again. But this was established, and if you look at your old minutes from when Lee was president, you would be able to read in there that you had approved that.
Okay. Yes.
I understand. All I'm saying, Gigi, is that, and Lisa, you actually don't need the approval of the Board of Selectmen. There's no statutes. It was a courtesy of the board 12 years ago to recognize the fact that you wanted to take on a student. You have that authority. You're a commission. We were a committee back then. Gigi, you're a commission, and that was done because you were a committee.
Right.
They're a commission now. It's within themselves to bring Reagan on board. And basically, the best definition that the statute's going to come up is you're a volunteer. And she gets to sit in on whatever, it's open to the public meeting anyway, so she can definitely be part of your group. She can participate in discussion in your group. You're going to set the parameters of what she can and cannot do.
Well, and we would like her to be able to represent the Conservation Commission to the students.
And you would handle that, again, within the commission and with a letter saying that she is representing Plymouth Conservation Commission. There's not a statute that accommodates the board to appoint a non-member to a commission. A non-voting member to a commission. And that's why we asked, if there was a space, they would put her in as a member tonight.
So why don't you go ahead and make her part of the group?
Well, we will. We actually already voted for that. We just thought we had to get.
And that's what gives you the authority to vote before you come to the board to ask for permission to vote.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah, I
that's
think
all
you're
I'm
all
saying.
set.
And if it's a letter of recommendation rating that you would need in the future, and if you wanted it to be endorsed by the Board of Selectmen, then you would come before the board to give an endorsement of sending a letter from the town on the work that she, because then she would have accomplished something, and you would have said, and this is what Reagan did over the last 2 or 3 years, and the board could put together a letter of endorsement for
Okay.
recommendations for you in the future.
Well, that would
in
be
the
good for,
graduate work. Right.
that would be good for her. Okay, so on to the real meat of it. As Neil was describing, one of the major aspects of the agenda for our most recent Conservation Commission was to decide how we would go about requesting some of the land use change tax funds and how we wanted to define that need and set the limits for ourselves, whether we wanted to try and appeal for 100% of the funds, 50%, whether we wanted to put on a cap on that or not. This has been something we've been understanding as a need because we just do not have the sufficient funds from the town maintenance of the general fund requests we do every year to really accomplish anything beyond trail maintenance. And we have a lot of talent on the commission. We have a lot of extraordinary ideas and ability with our membership to link out to other agencies and to do much more than we are actively doing. But some of that does take funds. For instance, we could start acquiring and soliciting more easements, conservation easements. But we don't have the money, we don't have the people and the time to monitor those easements. And that's always a requirement of the easement is monitoring. And so we would have to contract that out, and we don't have the funds to contract that out. So we've really been self-restricting on what we do because of lack of, we don't want the general fund to support these bigger ideas, but we have a lot of bigger ideas that would benefit the town and really fulfill the mission of the Conservation Commission to the town. And so as part of this, we did we've talked about this at several meetings. We've held off for several years putting this to the town because of economic hardships in the town. But we just now feel like it's time to stop hampering ourselves and to see if we can get some of that funding. So we put together this packet. It's basically reviewing some of the ideas that we've had. That's on the first page. The second page is really showing you the allocations of our most immediate neighbors. This is taken from a website. The New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions did a survey of all of the towns in New Hampshire and how they allocated their funds. That's 140 some odd towns, I think, 161 towns actually. But that survey is from 2009, and so I didn't replicate the whole thing here, but this is the portion of it for the towns that are closest to us. And as you can see, about half of them allocate 100% of their LUCT totals, of the LUCT funds, to the town, including Laconia, Meredith, Orford, Tamworth, Thornton, Tilton, Wolfboro. But some of those do have a cap of how much money per year they will allow to come in. So if there's a huge transaction of land coming out of current use, in that case, then some of the towns have a cap so that it doesn't all go into this conservation fund, which may not need that sizable amount of money. But some of these caps are very large. Laconia has a $100,000 cap per year of what they can bring in.
Well, two of them are pretty large.
Yeah, Meredith is high. Orford has no cap.
Meredith has tons of money. Right?
Exactly.
And they got all the flatlanders paying for it, so
Yeah.
that's fine for them.
Tilton has no cap. Wolfboro has no cap. So, in trying to
So
determine.
can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Well, so the ones that are 50 without a cap, the idea there is they get 50% of whatever land use change tax comes in, and the same with the others that don't have a cap? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then the ones that you've got here, do we have like Campton? Yeah, we've got Campton, Thornton, do we have, is Rumney? So you tried to get a lot of the ones in this neighborhood, and I see, but we're over to Tamworth and up in Franconia, Center Harbor. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, okay. Now, you said there are, there was a survey done in '09, or I don't know what you called it. But,
yes.
And what was going on in the rest of the state? How many towns are there?
234.
234. Oh, thank you.
Incorporated cities and towns.
And I thought you said 161 plus, so, yeah, okay.
Yep.
And of those 161, what else did you find in general that towns are doing? Can you summarize, or did you see all that information?
Oh, yes, it's all available. I didn't bring a worksheet because it's, 161 towns long and.
I wonder, these towns that, so say the ones that don't have a cap but give 50%, do any of them have an amount in their annual budget? Because
How do you mean?
Well, in other words, we put, I don't know how much, 4,000 or something, 3,000, 4,000. I think you asked for 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah, we've had to
this
increase
year.
our request every year, but when I came on board, I think we were requesting less than 2,000 a year.
Yeah.
And limping by on that.
Yeah.
And so we've increased our ask. But this would be a way of not having to continually increase our ask in order
Yeah.
to do what we need.
So we would eliminate that item from the budget?
We
Is
couldn't
that what-
eliminate it entirely because the land use change tax is not meant to cover things like plowing. So the plowing of the lots
So, but
would
do
still
these other
come.
towns, do they have a line item in their budget for an appropriation in addition to what comes from the land use change tax?
I have no idea. I would assume so because a lot of them have, regular maintenance needs.
Have you looked at what the land use change tax brings in? Because I don't even know, in Plymouth, on
The
average?
town report a couple years ago, which was the most recent one I could find, was 34,000 in that year.
Do we have any idea
2012?
over 10 years? I mean, it varies substantially from year to
It's
year.
gone from 1,000 to the highest of 34.
So,
The year before, 1,000?
It's been mostly. Yeah, it only happens, obviously, when land comes out of current use. And when that property has significant value.
So we just got this, so I didn't really have a chance to go through it, but did you have a, oh, you were asking
Yes.
for half.
So the Conservation Commission decided that because this is a new idea for Plymouth, and we've never had a fund like this to tap, we don't know how much we would make use of those funds if they were readily available. I listed some of the projects that we might jump into as soon as we felt, encouragement to do so. But we thought putting a cap on it would be totally arbitrary, because we don't have a base from which to work. Most of these other towns that have had the LUCT funds for a while, and I would think some of the ones that have caps probably haven't been accumulating because these funds roll over. And, at some point, it makes a sense not to continue to accumulate until you really have a need for those funds. But right now, we have zero. So, to let it build for a little bit and then reassess in a couple years and see whether or not it's time to think about putting a cap on it, changing the limits, or something else. But to just as a start, let's go with what most of our neighbors are doing, 50% and no cap.
So from what I've heard, it could be $500 or it could be $17,000.
Yep.
Paul?
Lisa, you were aware that you have $10,907,
Yes, and a lot of that was gift.
which is why you, and Gigi, I was on the committee. We became a commission so that we could raise our own money. And when we raised our own money as a commission, the board wouldn't be able to tell us how to spend it. It's why we became a commission.
Well, we started out with a gift from David Long, who grew up near the waterfall, and after his father died, he wanted to do something in his memory, and he gave us the $5,000. And it's because of your hard work. It did not go into the general budget, which I'm very sad. And so we've done, a lot of that money has been used for improvements and for work at the Walter Newton, because it was specifically for the Walter Newton, the trail work and the bridges and the signs. And we have a problem of occasionally losing signs, and they're quite expensive when they have to be replaced. And also David Long, and in fact the planning of the Selectboard got the letter that he wrote, that he said that he would like to see that part of it would be used for acquisition of easements or land. Of course, $5,000 is all we spend. There's not much we can do with it, but has really helped. And also when the Walters and Susan Newton gave us the Walter Newton land, the Walters have helped with the fundraising, and they started out with giving us $2,000, and when the Walter easement was added, Nat Walter gives us some money every year to plow his parking lot, and we had to use some of that money for using the Plymouth parking lot. As you remember, last year we had so much snow, and the town had plowed it but couldn't keep up with it, and so we actually had to take some of that money and pay for the plowing of the Plymouth parking lot. And I felt
I think Paul was asking the question about whether or not the commission has attempted any fundraising since it was made a commission. I think he was wondering about whether there has been an effort to do that, I guess.
well, only indirectly from the abutters of the not the abutters, from the Waters mainly, and Nat Water will fund us things for brochures or for plowing.
I can answer that maybe more fully. We have done a considerable amount of outreach. We participate in the Conservation Matters column, and every time Plymouth's turn comes around on that, which is in the Record Enterprise, We make the point that we are always looking for people interested in donating easements, donating funds, looking for volunteers. We send out information brochures periodically to encourage people to develop easements, to gift money if necessary. But basically, conservation commissions don't survive in this state simply on gifts from kind strangers. They survive from the conservation land use change tax funds, which is one of the reasons that fund was created, was to help these conservation commissions maintain valuable open space in towns, because it's considered to be a great benefit to towns to have a reasonable proportion of developed versus open space. It benefits the town economically, it benefits the town in terms of its appearance and appeal for tourism, for residents, for businesses to establish themselves. The economics are very well established that having open space helps towns, and the Land Use Change Tax Fund was designed to provide the ability to do that when people take their private lands out of current use, which is by definition open space, to convert them.
Yeah, it's interesting, that whole statute puts the town in the position of not getting essentially any tax revenue from any of this land, potentially forever, unless or until somebody decides to take it out, and then there's a payment made. And so I suppose the thinking is that that putting the money from the land use change tax into the Conservation Commission would somehow make sort of an adjustment for the fact that this land has been put into some sort of active use, presumably. So, yeah, I understand the theory, but I'm also thinking, on the other hand, just from, this is sort of academic, but from the town's point of view, the land that's allowed to remain open potentially forever does not produce any revenue at all,
But it doesn't cost the town either.
No, I understand.
And that's the key.
Well,
That developed residential areas cost the town more than
Yeah,
if they
sure,
stayed as open
yeah.
space.
oh, absolutely, I'm sure that's true. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
the fundraising, we did some fundraising at the very beginning, when I came on board, just about the time before we got the water movement. And the Conservation Commission members just couldn't do it. It was just too much to do. And the other fundraising was, we had a grant from, I think it was the Moose Place when that first came on board. And that helped us at the beginning to build the bridges and do the signs, and was a big chunk of money that had to be matched by the town, and the match was our physical work, and that we did to clear the trails and to put the bridges.
So let me ask you something else. On this,
And may I just have another comment? And you said that the town isn't getting any money from it. Plymouth Mountain has become so popular with people from out of state. It's written up in the AMC magazine. So I would believe that several people who are coming into town to be hiking that mountain and the other areas may stop downtown. I mean, when I go hiking, at least I get a cup of coffee afterwards to drive home. And people might even get more downtown than a cup of coffee. So there's definitely some money coming in from.
oh, I know.
They're coming from all over.
I work up in Lincoln, which probably wouldn't exist anymore if it weren't for the National Forest, so, I understand that. Yes,
I'd be
Mike?
anxious to find out, we know what percent they, and where it's capped, but we don't know what these towns might be, or what other towns might be sending money to the
Appropriate.
Conservation Commission, appropriating out of the general budget, like Plymouth does at 4,000. And whether, Holderness or Thornton or Tamworth, their annual cap is 5,000. They may be actually giving a whole lot less each year if they don't have the appropriation, which is what Plymouth is doing. So it seems like maybe we're doing more than our share in some cases.
I don't think so.
Well,
Mr. Chair, I just feel and I'm sorry, Gigi, I worked an awful lot with David Switzer on this. This isn't the way we wanted this to go. We always felt a fair way of doing this for the people of this town was to identify a project. And I don't care if it's a $25,000 project. Identify it to the people of the town, let them vote on it, and I believe you'll get it. I think when you start using land use funds in this way, you're not giving the people of the town a chance to speak. And that's how David and I always felt. That's how the committee decided to become a commission, that we wanted to serve the people as a commission and raise our money, and then in need, come before the town and ask for money. After we identified exactly not what it might be used for, because this is a might be. We might get 34,000 again. We might not ever get past 3,000 again. And we're not identifying if we do get 34,000 and the Conservation Commission is going to get 17 out of that, for what?
Okay, sometimes some land becomes available for an easement, and the money has to be available quickly. And if we start fundraising at that point, that money might be gone and that area developed.
Then I say put together a capital line right now for $17,000 and put it before the townspeople at the March meeting. Identify what you're going to use it for.
And what if it's 50,000 we need?
Then that's
I
why it would be a
understand what
capital
you're-
reserve. Then you would have to tell the town for the next 3 years, we want to raise $20,000.
I understand what you're saying, and I was not party to those initial discussions about the committee becoming a commission. That happened many years ago, and things have changed. The commission is comprised of a lot of new members with new ideas. The town has developed in different ways. Issues have come up that weren't anticipated by those prior discussions. And I am just putting that it increases our ability to act in the interests of the town, to have a fund that we can draw on as needed to fulfill our mission as a commission.
Can I say something, Mike?
Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, I was just reading this. Yes, Mike?
I look at an example of what the skate park did and how much money that they raised to put that skate park, and there was a need for it, and the community came together, and they did an exceptional job of doing their fundraising, coming up with the money, and doing a worthwhile project. And it might be worth it to go talk to
Mike Currier.
Mike Currier and see how they did it, and have that money set aside, raise the money, have it set aside for a worthwhile project when it comes up.
I don't understand what you're suggesting, that we go out and solicit funds for something that hasn't come up yet?
When you do have a project, you have something ready to go, whatever, I mean, if there's a need, then the people in this community would I would think, support it.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
Lisa, I think you're taking this on a defensive, and all I'm trying to do, because I tried to do this 12 years ago, and 15 years ago, and 17 years ago, for the good of the commission, go before a legislative body with something like this and have it turned down. What you've done to the future of the commission could really be hurt, versus going with a higher budget and getting it approved each year. I mean, you can put together, the board cannot stop the commission from putting a warrant article. 25 signatures get you your warrant article. And then it'll go before the March meeting, and it's going to get voted for or against. And if it gets voted against, where does that leave you?
Where we are right now. We have nothing to lose.
You could up your budget right now. We sent Neil to you and said, no, double your budget. You went up $1,000. You could have doubled it. I'm sure the legislative body would vote it in.
What we're trying to do is something much bigger than a couple $1,000s can accomplish. We're trying to become on par with our neighboring towns in terms of what they're able to do. And I understand a little bit where you're coming from, but not really, because to make an ask of the general fund for something that doesn't exist yet is
Then-
not
then I'm saying,
feasible.
Then you need to have a capital plan where you would ask your regular operating budget per year, let's say $4,000, and also put $5,000 or $10,000 away into a capital reserve plan.
But that would be for a specific target,
No,
wouldn't it?
no, no.
Would it be for
It's
land
not.
acquisition or?
See, I think,
So the
Conservation
select,
maintenance.
let me get this clear. So the select board would rather that we made a request of, say, $5,000 a year in addition
Yes,
to our operating needs?
for a capital reserve fund, and the
And you
way the
would rather
capital,
that than use the land use change tax funds that
To
are
me-
designed for that purpose?
I don't think they're really designed for that purpose. There's people who have used them for that. I know the statute probably, I haven't read all that.
161 towns use it for that purpose.
Well, 161 place some portion of their revenues in it, but I also read here that only 41 towns return 50% or more. So that's 41 out of 234, which is like 17% or something like that. It's not a huge number. It's not like we're completely out of our minds. And I'm not sure, we don't have all the information here either, because we don't know how much money any of these towns put into their conservation fund aside from the land use change tax funds. And I'm thinking that information is probably available somewhere, but I think what we think is that it makes, well, personally, I think that if you had a number, and I don't care if it's a relatively large number, that you got every year, that would be more predictable and more subject to being budgeted responsibly than not knowing if you're going to get, I guess, $500 or $17,000. And it sounds to me like on average, it's not that much that we have in land use change tax. So why don't we treat the Conservation Commission a little more seriously and put a little more money into it and have a fixed amount?
I say treat it like a department. And then 5 years from now, you will know what you have. Whereas this other way, 5 years from now, you're not gonna know what LUTs is gonna bring you.
Well, that's
It
true.
might bring you more than the $25,000.
You could win the lottery one year, I
Right.
suppose.
You might only have $5,000 after 5 years.
I
It
think,
gives you a better chance to plan, just like any other department has to.
Did you want to
I
say-
think it's better to have a solid number that you can work with every year, $5,000 or $6,000 a year. And
Or
because I think the land use change tax can go up and down like a yo-yo, and you can't really plan with it.
And the Department of Revenue will help us write it for you so that you can use it for many uses. It will be for the development of. It won't be so specific that you can only use it for one type thing. I mean, a highway, no, handling equipment. What's handling equipment? That's gonna be an awful lot of different things. It would be worded in such a general way that you could use it for trails, purchasing, and/or. Those things would all be written within the warrant article of your capital reserve line.
I'm moving to Chichester. 250,000.
Or I'm fine, or you go with your warrant article for the LUTs program, and it's a roll of the dice in two ways. First, it's gotta get approved, and then if it does get approved, I can't even fathom or guess at how much money you're gonna have from it 5 years from now.
So I think I want some clarification of what you're offering as an alternative idea, which is that the Conservation Commission be elevated more to like the Parks and Rec Department in terms of having a standing budget that's a
Well,
fairly significant
don't make it a
operating budget.
budget like Parks and Rec. That's a killer. But,
But you would operate the same way. You would have your operating budget, and let's again say that's $4,000. And every year you would have $5,000 going into reserve. 3 years from now, you would have $15,000 in reserve. You would then also take money out of reserve to put towards an identified project.
You can still raise money on the side. Some kind of fundraising.
And it also doesn't
You
have to
know,
be
in
just some
spare
kind of
time.
fundraising, like, just something on the web, but you can, what about like, we're a member of the Concord, or not Concord, but the State Association.
Mm-hmm.
They must have funding opportunities or grants or,
There are. A lot of funding agencies require matching funds, and we haven't had any funds to match with, so.
That's
we
another
haven't-
great thing that would be written into the warrant. It could
Right.
also be used as your matching
Yeah.
fund. At least you'll know 2 years from now, you're gonna have $10,000 in matching funds. Get this approved in March, you don't have that security.
Okay, let's come up with a scenario of there's a large tract of land that somebody would like to put into a conservation easement, but the land is valued at over $1 million. The easement would have a cost of $50,000. We wouldn't have nearly that much. Would we then still have a favorable chance to come before the board and ask for matching
that.
funds to cover that, despite the fact that we have a capital fund?
Can you cover that with your LUTs? You don't know. You might only get $500 for every year for 4 years. So how do you do it then? You'll have a better chance knowing what you have. Something like that, that's when you would come before the town with another article on top of that, another capital article, and capital outlay saying, we have this $1 million opportunity that it's only going to cost the town $50,000 to obtain, and that would be one warrant article. That would be a capital outlay, not a capital reserve.
It may
Depend on the LUTs to pull off that $1 million deal. Boy, the best we've done is 34,000, which you'd have 17. You'd have to hope for another 34,000 on top of that, and you'd need 3 good years.
The 34,000 is just one number that came up 1 year.
And it's, you're exactly
I
right.
don't have the data prior.
Well, I can tell you in my 9 years, and Kathy's been in this building longer than that, it's only been one time.
Mhm.
But the average is more 1 to 3.
And, I may be sort of out of turn a little bit here, but I'm thinking if you guys came to a town meeting looking for money to buy a substantial conservation easement like that, it may be that the town would either support it or support a significant portion of it. I wouldn't be surprised. And if you had a few years to do something like that, I bet it could be done. And I don't think, it's not that we aren't
Supporting.
interested in conservation. I think it's always been kind of the ugly stepchild in some way. That's probably politically incorrect, isn't it? I'm sure it is, yeah.
No, what-
But,
I think it takes away from it being viewed as a club. Like the airport was viewed very many years as a club until we went more down this route. We have an operating plan and we have a capital improvement plan to do work out there.
We
And I
would
think that
definitely-
people feel they have more of a say as a town on the projects.
We would definitely
Yeah.
like to be seen as an integral part of what makes this town function. And I think that component may have been lacking in some years.
yeah, I think you're probably right. So, yeah, well, let's,
I'd
Yes.
just like to say that I consider that we are now facing a critical time where water quality and flood attenuation and environmental stewardship are more important than they've ever been before. And we really need to take a solid step forward to enable the Conservation Commission to lead in that area.
kind of on a lighter note, but Happiness Quest is a project that PSU is doing, and it's going to be like a 1 to 2 year project. And conservation and hiking trails and biking trails, that's like high on the list of what makes people happy around here. And that was brought up at a recent meeting. So, it's obviously in the hearts of Plymouth, so.
And we also saw it at the master plan meeting that we had at the senior center.
True. Yep.
so what is the, I guess what
it's still in the hands of the commission. It's their warrant article to do or not to do. And it's, we haven't drawn a line in the sand where we said it's too late to submit a capital
guess-
reserve item into your budget.
I guess we've put together a proposal to you. I've heard that you don't want to support it, but you're interested in supporting the commission. Is there any chance of getting a motion out of you as to how much you would be willing to support the commission before we withdraw or
Why don't
request?
you, no, I think you gotta ask, why don't you think about it, make a request, and we're going over the budget the
And
next,
meanwhile, I'd like to look at
2
the
weeks.
last 10 years of LUTs and
that would be
to
good.
all of you, get you the last 10 years. And I think it would give both sides a chance to look at where this would go.
There's still some unanswered questions here, like, Holderness, which looks like a nice little neighbor town, $5,000. Is that the cap?
That's the annual cap.
And is that the budget? So we don't know how many people are actually funding.
Right, we don't know how many people have an operating budget
Yeah.
plus LUTs, or do they just get LUTs?
And whether or not it might lapse. LUTs, does it just accrue? Does it just get carried forward, or will it lapse? So, it could be like a town like Holderness might just lapse the 5,000 at the end of the year.
No, if it goes, it's by statute. If it goes as
To it,
LUCT funds
Okay.
into conservation funds.
Because their commission,
It rolls over and accumulates.
it doesn't lapse. If they're a committee, it would lapse.
Okay, gotcha. All right. But still, some unanswered questions.
So, I think the answer is, and I just said this, but why don't you think about how much would be a reasonable amount to ask for in the budget? Maybe a portion of it is capital, a portion of it is operating, and give it to us, and we're going over the budget the next few weeks. And we can decide about whether to put it in. And then you don't have to wait for a LUCT or whatever it is. He says
Okay.
LUTs, LUCT.
It's
I don't know.
LUCT,
It's a tough word to pronounce.
It's LUCT.
LUCT.
Can I ask another question? What's in the operating budget, if we don't use that, that goes back into the general fund, correct?
Yes.
But what we put into another fund, into
Capital.
capital fund, that will stay with
That
That
us?
stays with you in reserve, yes.
Can we, for the asset, maybe you consult with Kathy, or, just maybe get a target on what they should put in for a capital reserve, or,
I can tell you Park and Recs does 5,000.
okay. Is that enough instruction?
Am I right? 5,000.
Okay, I'll take this back to the commission, and
Thank you
We
so
can-
You got a
much.
quorum here
Thank
anyway,
you.
so.
thank you, almost.
Thank you.
Just report. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that's it for our agenda, isn't it?
Probably another hour to kill, I think.
What'd you call that, happiness?
Happiness
don't-
Quest.
Oh, yeah.
What were we talking about that?
Well, we have unfinished business, if you wanted to
Well, yeah.
let it go. Okay. I don't think there's anything else on our agenda. We'll take a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, I just looked
great.
right at it and didn't.
Rebecca
Jeez.
Hansen, I'm on the planning board, I was on the conservation commission, I didn't intend to speak in front of you this evening, but after hearing Ashley's introduction to the road salt application grant that she's interested in doing, I just want to urge the board to really consider doing that. As Neil said, we are facing unprecedented times with water quality, stormwater management, things like that, and as we take that into consideration, I think the proposal will really work to improve the town's efficiency with road salt application. It will gives an opportunity to collaborate between the town, the university, and the Department of Transportation, which I think is important, especially when we consider the things that I mentioned a second ago. And also the opportunity to protect the water quality of not just our drinking water, but of our surface water, our well water. I think that this is an opportunity to really be innovative about the issues that we're facing right now. So I just urge you to consider.
All right.
Thank you.
Question for Rebecca. Have you heard any more on the state or the universities supporting? I think it would help a lot if we knew, because the state was balking on this.
Okay.
And I don't see where the plan works without having all three entities on board.
I
Be
agree.
important if we could find out, if you could contact me, let me know, or Sharon, if the university and the state's gonna be on board. I think that would help make the decision a lot
We
easier.
can definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you,
Nice to
Becca.
see you. Having accepted public comment, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make that we adjourn.
By Neil, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.